Prepare to experience the strongest radio allowable by law. Secrets will be revealed. Myths dispelled. From the studio gym where excuses never apply, it's Superhuman Radio with your host, Carl Lanore.
This is Science for Humans with Dr. Jeff Golini.
He is here in the flesh, not just in spirit, and that is Dr. Jeff. How you doing, Dr. Jeff?
I'm doing good, Carl. How are you doing today?
Good, very good. I'm jazzed. This is my second day of a fast.
Nice.
I know, but I've made a concoction, Dr. Jeff, made with coconut oil and essential amino acids that I blended together. And I'm eating 2 tablespoons every 4 to 5 hours to keep the ketone bodies active in my bloodstream and keep some semblance of leucine in my bloodstream, hopefully to influence protein synthesis, at least not becoming catabolic, but allowing me to fast under 500 calories a day.
Wow, that's pretty amazing, man. I'm on a little bit one, not quite as dramatic as you, but after last week's show, I got to thinking about gluten, and I thought, I'm going to try to go gluten-free and see if I feel better.
So, what's the prognosis so far?
You know what? I have, for the last several years, every time I eat, my stomach is bloated all the time.
Bingo.
So that's the first thing that happened, disappeared like a day later, was that bloat just disappeared. And a whole lot of other little symptoms that I wasn't really sure where they were coming from. I think was coming from gluten. So I'm gonna try it for 60 days. But so far, I'm keeping it out.
I'm gonna send you something. We just got a gluten-free pasta and gluten-free pizza dough from somebody who wants to become a sponsor on the show. We're gonna be checking it out because it's hard to give up gluten when you're Italian. I mean, semolina flour is high in gluten. Right?
That was the first thing I told my wife. I said, I had a great show. Did you listen? And she always goes, no, tell me about it. And I said, well, I think I might have a gluten intolerance. And she's like, well, what am I going to make? I said, well, it's kind of like a bodybuilding diet, no breads, no muffins.
Yeah. I mean, but this is exciting, isn't it? Look at this. You did a show that benefited other people and it's helping you too.
Absolutely. I mean, the more I have been researching this whole allergy thing, it's pretty interesting and it's pretty amazing, how we can self-diagnose ourselves. I mean, nothing against doctors and allergists, God bless them. But a lot of times it's trial and error, and us being ex-athletes, we've always listened to our body. So if you just really take a listen to what it's trying to say, you can figure out a whole lot of stuff.
So on that note, there are 8 food allergens that are really the worst offenders out there. So why don't we go through the list and talk about them?
Okay. Well, here's the big 8, as the FDA calls them. The first one, and not in any particular order, is milk. And, keep in mind, all of these allergens come from the proteins that are present in these particular food groups. Milk can be a potentially deadly allergic reaction to some people. Most children, well, not most, but 2 to 5% of all children develop a milk allergy in the first year of life. So milk is a big one, because, boy, it is in so many foods. As we were talking about last week, when you go out to eat or you buy pre-cooked or processed foods, I mean, look at the list of ingredients.
Yeah, it's just shocking. And we should also say that the milk we're talking about is conventionally produced milk from cows that produce a high degree of beta to casein, which has been one of the offending proteins that we've discovered that is found in high amounts in the types of cows that commercial milk producers produce. If you're buying raw unpasteurized milk from Jersey's, you do not find this casein, by the way, and obviously they're eating grass. So milk is one of the big ones. What else?
So milk is probably the top of the list. Next comes eggs. A lot of kids have food allergies to eggs. Usually they outgrow them. And you got to look at the label because the labels of things don't always say egg. Sometimes they say egg white or dried eggs or albumin.
Oh.
So A little sneaky, I don't know if they do it on purpose or what, but most people, if they saw albumin, wouldn't realize that's egg, just another name for it.
Right.
Another big one is peanuts. We're talking about just a regular peanut. Up to 20% of children are diagnosed with peanut allergies. So it's a pretty big one. Most of the times they do outgrow it, but peanuts can really cause severe allergic reactions. To anyone out there who has a peanut reaction, they know. They're usually prescribed to carry like an EpiPen all the time with them.
Right. And those EpiPens are so popular now, they're advertising them on TV now. They have a new one that is a multi-injection EpiPen that you don't even have to take the pants off. You just stick it in the thigh area, and it pierces whatever you're wearing and gets into the leg. And
it gives you instructions along the way, so it really makes it easy on that standpoint. So if you're prescribed that, make sure you carry that. There's a reason why your doctor would have given that to you. Tree nuts is next. Tree nuts are every other nut, almonds, cashews, macadamiums, things of that nature. Fish. Some people have allergies more to the scaly and bony fish, like cod, haddock, halibut, mackerel, salmon.
I never knew that one. That's amazing.
Yeah, fish is one of them. I don't think it's the most common one, but people do. Shellfish is one that you hear a lot about.
Yes.
And, there are two categories of shellfish. So most people, think of the crustaceans like, lobsters, crayfish, shrimp, but mollusks are also under that shellfish.
Clams.
So, oysters.
I remember when I was a kid, there was a guy in my neighborhood who died from eating raw clams, and it's a histamine response that is stimulated.
Yep.
And he died of anaphylactic shock. No one knew what was going on. His lips swelled up and his throat closed up, and he basically asphyxiated.
Yeah, I mean, it's, that's the worst thing that can happen. The other is soybeans, soy. And again, soy is really a difficult one because so many foods that are processed, have soy in them. And of course, we talked about last week, gluten, which is, wheat is the last one on the list. And wheat is in most everything. If it says modified food starch, it's wheat. If it says farina, if it says flour, it probably is wheat. A lot of times they even say starch, and that's from wheat.
That's tricky.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, so those are kind of the big eight. I think if you think you have some allergy or some symptoms, we're going to kind of talk a little bit about the symptoms. We're going to talk about, what goes on inside the body. But, some of the most common symptoms that aren't fatal, that if you have a food allergy, tingling or itching, usually in the mouth. Some people get hives. I've seen people just turn bright red. My daughter had food allergies, and she would just get bright red. Swelling of the lips, tongue, throat, parts of the body. Some people have nasal congestion, trouble breathing, wheezing. Some people get abdominal pains, diarrhea, nausea, or vomiting, dizziness, lightheadedness, fainting. Those are all very common symptoms to food allergies. So if you have those, you may well have a food allergy.
Well, let me tell you what I discovered I'm allergic to. You're
What's
not
that?
going to believe this when I tell you honey. Now, this is okay. So I put honey in my oatmeal, and it doesn't bother me. But if I take a tablespoon of honey and put it in my mouth and swallow it, I immediately get a tickling sensation in my throat that causes me to start to cough. It's like a spontaneous reaction. And then within minutes, my nose fills up and I have to blow my nose continuously for the next 10 to 15 minutes. And it finally dawned on me one day when I was home that I put a tablespoon of honey in my mouth and I ate it. And I had this sensation immediately. And I said to Elisa, I guess I've been ignoring it because I love honey so much, but I'm allergic to honey.
Interesting, because, some people, like I believe that if you eat the local honey, because of the pollens and things, that it does help, with kind of those seasonal allergies. But it does make sense that, there is a lot of things in there that you could be allergic to. But, something else, there is one of the symptoms. It's called cross reactivity between pollens, fruits and vegetables and things. So, there could be some of this cross-reactivity happening, or it could just be something that is in the honey that you're using.
Yes, and so this was Manuka honey that we bought at Trader Joe's that I discovered this. I have yet to try some fresh local honey that I'll get at the farmer's market and see if it happens. And you're right. It could be honey from different regions that have the presence of certain types of pollens, and I could just be allergic to the pollen accumulation in that honey.
But the other thing is, honey doesn't mean all honey. I can't remember the exact ruling.
Yeah, you're so right about this. They're cutting it with corn syrup and everything.
Corn syrup, and I mean, could there be some other, starch or something that you're actually allergic to? I mean, the only time you can really trust honey is if you find a beekeeper in your area and you go over there and you get a bucket or, a bottle, a little honey bear full.
This is a good point. And what I want to do is I want to go ahead and take our break now. When we come back, I want to talk about if you discover that you are allergic to something. There's a lot of different allergies. There's those that show up quickly, like my experience with the honey. But there's the two different immune systems at work, the IgA and the IgG. And the IgG, quite often, the reaction may not show up for up to a day. So it takes a little more time and a little more skill to track this. But I want to take a break real quick, and when we come back, we'll talk more about the 8 food allergens out there that people need to be aware of. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Have you tried Carbolin yet? It's what the pros use. At EFX Sports, we know athletes and we know what it takes to safely fuel their performance. That's why we created Carbolin, the ultimate formulated to win carbohydrate drink. Whether you want to quickly carb load before a big competition or you want to recover faster after a workout, Carbolin is the answer. Carbolin is sugar-free, gluten-free, and caffeine-free. Best of all, you can try Carbolin right now absolutely free. Just head over to getcarbolin.com and sign up to receive a free sample of this amazing carbohydrate formula. Once again, that's getcarbolin.com. GetCarbolyn.com.
You're listening to the Superhuman Channel. Don't hate us because we feel good.
Welcome back to Science for Humans with my co-host, Dr. Jeff Golini. And we're talking about the food allergens, the 8 most popular foods that people develop or are allergic to. And as you were pointing out, Dr. Jeff, that the anaphylactic shock is more of an acute response to something that you're allergic to, correct?
Correct.
But there can be a delayed response. So you have 3 different immune system functions, and I'm not going to pretend to know which does what. IgG, IgE, and IgA. I think IgG is the one that creates mucus in order to sequester things that the body doesn't like having around. And I believe the IgE is the acquired or learned immune response. So as you come in contact with things like people who are allergic to peanuts, they'll eat peanuts one time. Nothing happens. The second or third time, they end up with anaphylactic shock. And so this is the part of the immune system that's learning from the environment. And quite often, the response is not acute. You don't go, oh, I just ate peanuts and I can't breathe, where you could put 2 and 2 together and go, oh, I'm allergic to peanuts, like I did with honey. Quite often, you'll eat something and you'll feel lousy the next day. And it's a lot harder to connect the dots unless you're paying attention. And this is why diets like the elimination diet, when you do an elimination diet, these 8 food allergens that you just listed, Dr. Jeff, the naturopaths that do the elimination diet, these are off limits. You can't have any of these. And then you introduce, after you live without them for 2 to 4 weeks, which most people go, oh, I feel great, but you don't know why yet. Then they reintroduce them one at a time.
Right.
And then you go, I ate bread yesterday. I didn't end up with anaphylactic shock, but the next day my knees hurt me. I felt like I was running a fever. I just didn't feel good. So you really have to pay attention. If you think you have an allergic reaction to food, it's not always going to just make your lips swell up where somebody goes, wow, you just ate something and it's affecting you. You have to be a little more in tune with your body, don't you?
Well, you do, and like you said, sometimes you will eat something for the first time and your body will produce these immunoglobulins, right, which neutralize that. But now your body remembers. So the next time that allergen is introduced, it's going to react immediately. So that's why sometimes you will feel it quicker. But there's also what's called exercise-induced food allergies, which this really throws a whole wrench in the system, is exercise actually triggers that allergy. So you can eat that allergen and have no problems, but if you then go exercise will start the process.
Well, but this makes sense. You know why? Hard training athletes have impaired immune function. Guess what else hard training athletes develop? They're more prone to gut disorders. And that's because the immune system resides in the gut. So if you have an immune response issue, you generally also have gut issues. And the harder you train, if you don't supplement with additional glutamine, this is my assumption, okay? Glutamine is the most abundant amino acid in the body. It also has been shown to play a pivotal role in the mucosal lining of the stomach that keeps the immune system functioning properly and protected in the stomach. The harder you train, the more the demand for glutamine goes to repairing skeletal muscle tissue. It's taken away from the stomach, and this is my own 2 cents on why hard training athletes borderline on immune issues and gut issues, because they are not supplementing with glutamine for the extra need. You need some for your stomach. Look, if you have an alternator, it's putting out 16 volts, 12 to repower the battery, and the rest to help power the car.
Absolutely. I think that's probably a good analogy on what you do need. And, another thing, too, is, as we were talking about these reactive pollens. So, people who are sensitive to pollens or have allergies, for instance, if you have a birch pollen, you will get a reaction or could get a reaction from apples, carrots, celery. So different pollens cause different reactions with different fruits and vegetables. That one I didn't know about, that I just came across from the Mayo Clinic.
I wonder if that's what's happening to me with honey.
Well, that's what I was thinking, because depending on, what is in there, but it's interesting that it's, the fruits and vegetables that you do have that reaction. The good news is, Carl, there's a lot of natural antihistamine type herbs out there that, people in the world have been using for thousands of years that, seem to be pretty effective if you don't want to go, with the drug antihistamines.
Claritin or something. Yeah, so what are they, Dr. Jeff?
There is a whole list. I was actually thinking I need to put this list together, and we need to put it on the site there so people could actually look. But a couple of them that I really liked, basil. Maybe that's why Italians never get sick. I don't know. But that is actually one of the best antihistamine herbs. It has a history for, helping stomach cramps, constipation. They've been using it for probably thousands of years. Chamomile is another good one. Stinging needle, which is interesting because if you actually touch the hairs on a stinging needle, that will put histamine into your system. But if you drink it as a tea, it works as an antihistamine.
I'll be darned.
Things like echinacea, vitamin C, thyme, just really common herbs. Fennel, nothing that's really exotic. As a matter of fact, I saw a study that said vitamin C is probably one of the best natural antihistamines used in high dosages, like 3,000 to 5,000 milligrams.
One that's not an herb but does work is methylsulfomethane, and it's thought that the addition of the sulfate, which body uses sulfur to help balance the immune system, and it's thought that we don't get enough sulfur in our diet any longer. That's one that can actually help you with seasonal allergies, springtime type allergies. Interesting. So antihistamines in general can help ward this stuff off, but it's better not to eat these foods, right?
It is. And I mean, obviously that's a whole lot of foods, and you really need to go on a clean diet, because I was thinking just from the gluten standpoint, asking people is something gluten-free, they don't have a clue. I went in the Subway and said, do you have anything gluten-free? And she's like, huh?
Yeah, right.
Like, okay, well, you don't.
Yeah, right. If you don't know what it is, forget about it. That's funny because right now the gluten-free market is booming, and even things that we know don't have gluten in them, they are promoting as gluten-free. And it's really funny to me because Elisa and I went to a restaurant one day, and she ordered chicken, and the waiter said, do you want the gluten-free chicken? Because their whole MO is everything on the menu is gluten-free. And I looked at him and I said, what kind of chicken has gluten? He goes, oh, I don't know. He goes, but we're supposed to tell you that it's gluten-free. I said, okay, thanks a lot. I guess the water was gluten-free too, right?
There is. And, it's easy to go into a health food store because they have a whole gluten-free section. But I went in the regular grocery store and I walked around because I thought, okay, the health food store has cornflakes, which corn is gluten-free. I wonder what the regular store does. And of course, none of the generics say gluten-free, but some of the national brands are now saying gluten-free. But you got to look at the labels. I mean, just looking at these allergens, I was looking at some cans of soup. They probably contain all of these allergens. I mean, you wouldn't think things like peanuts could be in soup, but they are. There is all kinds of things that they throw into some of these processed foods,
And another thing to consider, and this actually is a great segue into the next interview, and that is when you have an immune response to a food, you also are increasing chronic inflammation. And anytime you can reduce chronic inflammation, you are doing your body some great things. So it's really important that if you suspect that one of these 8 foods we just listed, milk, eggs, peanuts, tree nuts, fish, shellfish, soy, or wheat, are causing you any type of allergic reaction, it would do you well to eliminate them from your diet and do a short experiment like Dr. Jeff did with gluten.
It's not that difficult. It's easy to eliminate those. But, these, like you said, these can not only be life-threatening, but they're just irritants. I mean, who wants to be tingling or red or itching all the time? Just eliminate those from your diet. Maybe you used to be able to eat them, but sometimes the older we get, we develop some of these allergens.
Exactly.
It's just time to cut them out. Like we said last week, things that you're allergic to are usually things that you're addicted to. So if it's tough to get rid of it, you probably are allergic to it.
That is such a good point, and we need to end the interview on that note there. And this was a great show, Dr. Jeff. I think we're going to help a lot of people with this. Thanks so much for being on the air today.
You're welcome. Take care.